Bob Robertson leads off with the Pirates in the 9th inning against Jim Palmer. Robertson has hit the ball hard today. Lined a single to left, but not going to run in the 2nd. Strike 1 to him. He lined a single to left in the 4th, and he lined out to the shortstop in the 6th. 2 out of 3. Pirates got a run in the 2nd. Clemente hit a homer in the 3rd, nobody on. The Orioles got a run in the 6th and scored the tying run in the 7th. 1 ball, 1 strike. We've had a lot of phone calls come into Baltimore and telegrams. I want to explain something. Ball to Chuck Thompson earlier said that no team has ever lost the first 2 games of the series and then won 4 in a row, and he was correct. No team has ever lost the first 2 games and then come back to capture 4 straight and win the series. 4 times teams foul ball. 4 times in series history a club has won the series 4 games to 3 after losing the first 2, but they haven't done it by winning 4 straight. We want to clarify that. There's been a lot of calls and telegrams coming in. 2-2 to Bob Robertson, top of the 9th inning. Oh, the Oriole fans thought that was strike 3. So did Henry. So did Weaver's got his cap off. He's been a wild man over there in that dugout the last 3 innings. He doesn't think his club's getting the pitches. 3-2 to Robertson. Nobody on, nobody out. Foul back. Eddie Watt, a right-hander, and Pete Rickert, a left-hander, are ready for Baltimore if they're needed. This will be a 3-2 pitch. Struck him out on the fastball. A 4 strikeout for Palmer. He has walked only 1 in this game. That was in the 5th. He got in the groove after the 4th inning. Manny Sanguillen has singled, fouled out, and singled. Palmer now has retired 8 in a row. 0-1 to Sanguillen. As usual, going for that first pitch. There they are, Eddie Watt, the right-hander, and Rickert, the left-hander. One ball, 1 strike. This game tied 2-2, top of the 9th. And for you Baltimore fans, the Orioles in the last of the 9th have the bottom of the order up: Hendricks, Belanger, and Palmer. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Sanguillen. When Palmer's right, he's probably the most overpowering pitcher in the Baltimore staff. Change. 2-2. He has the best lifetime won or loss percent of any active American League pitcher. His curve misses. 3-2. He's won 68%. This will be argued by Baltimore fans. That could have been the ball game.
I'll take a look at the play again. Buford trying to obstruct Hernandez. He accomplished that. Now the Hernandez throw and the Johnson slide in an effort to reach. And the throw clearly beats Johnson, and the umpire with a fine call. So at the end of a regulation 9 innings, the score is Pittsburgh 2 and Baltimore 2. Bullpen, and here is Tony Kubek.
Well, I guess we've talked an awful lot about the pressure of World Series play, and right next to the Oriole dugout, it's just a lot of electricity. A little bit of byplay, of course, situated between these 2 dugouts. Johnny Kibler, the home plate umpire, and he's been getting the heat from both sides. Any pitches that are close in the strike zone, either way, are being, of course, criticized by both managers and dugouts. And Kibner has just kept his cool, has not thrown anybody out of the game yet. I don't know how, because he's taken a lot of heat and called a great ball game. Back upstairs.
All right, Tony, the last extra inning game of the World Series with the fourth game of the '69 series. We're now going to the 10th inning. This game tied 2-2, and let's see what happens here in the 10th inning, Chuck Thompson.
Well, the first thing, the Pirates will bring up a pinch swinger in the person of Vic Davalillo. Davalillo will be the batter against Pat Dobson, who started Game 4 in Pittsburgh, went 5 1/3 innings and was touched for 10 base hits, walked 3, struck out 4, and was charged with 3 runs. And, of course, came away with no decision. And now we have Vic Davalillo against Pat Dobson. And a ball 1. Davalillo batting for pitcher Dave Justy. Bob Miller. And that'll be the first out of the inning to second baseman Johnson. Well, the extra inning records of these two clubs are very interesting. Baltimore won 7 and lost 7 in extra innings. The Pirates won 6 and lost 6 in extra innings. One down on the top of the batting order, Dave Cash. Here's a young man who has contributed some outstanding defensive plays. A strike. Dobson throws just about everything: the fastball, the curveball, the slider, and the palm ball. Look out, Pirate dugout. Kurt?
Chuck, I was just thinking of that ground ball that Hernandez handled. He stayed right with it, didn't he?
No trouble at all. Well, trouble, yes, but he did not, get too excited and make any rash, quick, sudden moves trying to grab it and get the throw away. Handled it very coolly, I guess. 2 strikes now to Cash. And your on-deck hitter, Rich Hebner. Base hit. Frank Robinson running it down. And Cash will hold with a single. Now here is Hebner. After Cash reaches, Hebner has flied to center, popped to short, walked, and bounced to the shortstop.
Number 20, Richie Hebner.
And against Dobson in Game 4, Hebner had 1 hit in 3 trips. And he scored a run. That's the curveball for Pat Dobson. Jim Palmer went the first 9 innings, 8 hits, walked only 1 batter, struck out 5, and charged, of course, with 2 Pirate runs. And now here is Dobson. Palmer retired the last 10 in a row. That's the pound ball. 2 strikes to Hebner. Dave McNally throwing in the Oriole bullpen, and Bob Miller had been up and warming in the Chris McNally in the Pirate bullpen. Two-strike pitch to Hebner. No, a throw to first. Like the palm ball again. A count now, a ball and 2 strikes. Top of the 10th inning, Game 6 in Baltimore. The Pirates and the Orioles in a 2-2 tie. There goes the runner. Struck him out. Throw to second. Safe at second base.
Well, this is the 5th stolen base of the series. Cash is injured, by the way, when he went into second. You'll see it at the end of this. Low curveball. Hendricks up. And he injured his hand when he went in there. Dave Cash. Watch his slide now. Looks like he's injured his left hand, his left wrist. And they're attending him right now at second base. So the Pirates have a man in scoring position. They have now swiped 5 bases in this series. They're just 1 for the Orioles. They've been running on Hendricks. And Clemente is the batter.
That is exactly the situation. Here is the great Roberto Clemente. This afternoon, he tripled his first time up. He homered his second time. And then his fly to center and fly to left. And I don't think this surprises anybody. The Orioles are going to give him the intentional walk. In the series, Clemente hitting a resounding .440, 11 hits and 25 trips. And Weaver on the phone to the bullpen.
And Earl Weaver said before our night telecast Wednesday, we've got to contain Clemente or we're not going to win this series. And they still haven't contained him.
Well, there's the intentional walk to Clemente, and Weaver now is out of the dugout. He's got McNally down there. Pete Rickard is just now beginning to toss. I'm not certain whether McNally is ready. I guess that's what Weaver's phone call was about, if he chooses to bring McNally. So far as we can determine, I don't believe he's made the sign yet. But Weaver is going to talk to Pat Dobson. And Hendricks, of course, out there. Brooks Robinson tuning in. Kurt?
Right now, Watt and Rickard are in the bullpen. Dobson's leaving. Oh, evidently, McNally is coming on. Well, we have a break in the action here at Baltimore with the score in the 10th inning tied 2-2. Well, how often do you see this? 3 20-game winners in a row. Palmer relieved by 20-game winner Dobson. Dobson relieved by 21-game winner McNally. And here in the 10th inning, the Pirates have runners on first and second, 2 down. McNally started the first and 5th games of this series. He won the first game 5-3. He lost the 5th game at Pittsburgh 4-0. Pitched only 4 innings. In this series now he's pitched 13 innings, allowed 10 hits, 7 runs. An earned run average of 2.08. McNally against Willie Stargell, Chuck.
With 2 out and Pirate runners, Cash at second base, Clemente at first base. Top of the 10th inning in a 2-2 tie. Stargell is 0 for 4 this afternoon. Ball 1. Stargell has struck out, grounded to short, struck out, and flied to left. McNally made 30 starts for the Orioles this year. This is his first relief appearance. And 1-1. Quite naturally, with Stargell at the plate, Powell is backed off at first base with 2 out, and Clemente is getting himself a fantastic lead as McNally releases. Belanger shading toward the bag, cuts down on the lead of Cash, of course, at second. The 1-1. 2-1 now. The 2-1 pitch to Stargell. 3-1. This is McNally's first relief since July 19 of 1969. And the 3-1 pitch to Stargell. Ball 4, he walks in. The bases are loaded with 2 down. McNally on to get the left-handed swinging Stargell, loses him on the base on balls, and now the left-hand swinging Al Oliver. If Game 7 is necessary, 1:30 Eastern Time tomorrow. Pre-game World Series Report 71 with Joe Garagiola and Sandy Koufax. Rickard and Watt in the Oriole bullpen. McNally to Al Oliver. Cash third. Ball. Ametti second, Stargell first. 2 out. The 1-0 to Oliver. The 1-1 to Al Oliver. Foul ball. One and two, the count to Oliver. Bases loaded, 2 out. Missed again with that breaking ball. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
He's had trouble getting that curve over.
And that's a very important part of McNally's pitching. He does not have, let's say, the kind of a fastball that Palmer has that overpowers people.
He's throwing the fastball for strikes, but not the curve.
And the 2-2. Well, let's watch Retmund in center field. That's it. In the top of the 10th inning, the Pirates, no runs, 1 base hit, no Oriole errors, and 3 are left on. At the end of 9 1/2 innings, the score is Pittsburgh 2 and Baltimore 2. The last half of the 10th inning in Baltimore, as you take a look at managers Earl Weaver and Danny Murtaugh. Bob Miller has come to the mound for the Pittsburgh Pirates, replacing Dave Justy, who went 2 1/3, 2 hits, a walk, 3 strikeouts, and no runs. And we also have a new center fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Davalillo, who opened the Pirate half of the 10th inning and lined to the second baseman, stays in the ball game, and is playing in center field. And Bob Miller, his record on the year, 8 wins and 5 defeats. And his figures in the World Series, this will be his 3rd game. He has pitched a total of 4 innings, allowing 6 hits, 1 earned run. Without a walk, he has fanned 2, and his ERA is 2.25. It will be for Baltimore, Powell, Retmund. Check that, Powell, Frank Robinson, and then Retmund.
Number 26,
Well, Powell has 1 hit in 4 trips this afternoon. Last of the 10th, 2-2 tie. Ball 1 to Powell. And that Powell shift, of course, in effect again. Second baseman Cash. 1 gone. And now hitless this afternoon in 4 plate appearances, Frank Robinson. Struck out in the 2nd, fly to right on the 4th, popped to short in the 6th, struck out again in the 8th. Ball 1.
Look down there at that third base line at Hebner, almost on top of it.
And Hernandez cut well to the hole. 1-1. Paid attendance announced in Baltimore this afternoon is 44,174. 2-1. And the 2-1. 3-1 now to Frank. And Miller now with a tough pitch to make to the likes of Frank Robinson. He missed it. Ball 4. So with 1 out, the Orioles have Frank Robinson at first base, and Merv Rettenmund is the batter. Rettenmund, like Frank Robinson, 0 for 4, has struck out twice, has grounded to short, and a fine play from second baseman Cash, who retired into the 5th inning. Certainly our thanks this afternoon to Alan Roth, our statistician, and Jim O'Gorman, production stage manager. Frank is going to go to third. Davalillo's throw. Safe.
Well, we talk about Clemente being 37. Frank Robinson still goes from first to third at his age, 35 or 36 years old. He just beats this one in. He never followed. He rounded second. Here's the throw by Davalillo. Beautiful slide by Frank Robinson. Now watch him all alone. Never broke stride, a mark of a good base runner. Comes on in and puts the winning run on third with 1 out. And the Orioles had runners on first and third, nobody out in the 6th, though, after getting a run in and couldn't score. Well, they've had their chances. Let's see what happens here with Brooks Robinson.
And Brooks Robinson has gone out unassisted to first, singled, hit into a force, and a fine play by Cash again got him in the 8th inning. Out of play. Never had the Orioles a better opportunity than now. Because the Pirates, of course, have no chance to do anything about equalizing if Baltimore can get it here. 1-1. We pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC television network. One ball, 1 strike to Brooks Robinson. 1 out. Runners first and third. 1-2. One ball, 2 strikes.
36 years old. He really went to third on that, didn't he, Chuck?
He really did. Now the tough part for Baltimore, get him the rest of the way. The 1-2 pitch. Rettenmund goes. It's fouled out of play. Rettenmund running on the pitch, and Brooks just slapped it out of play. Crowd really buzzing right now. The 1-2 to Brooks Robinson. Watching Frank at third. Davalillo is under it. It's shallow. Davalillo's catch. Frank is coming. Here comes the throw. He scores, and the Orioles win.
Ball wasn't hit very deep either. So Frank Robinson's 36-year-old legs give the Orioles this uphill victory. As he went from first to third, just made it in. Here it is now. Brooks Robinson gets that ball out of the infield. Davalillo, you'll see, is in fairly shallow left center. His throw is to the left of home plate. And a high bounce, and Frank Robinson goes right under there, is in with a winning run. The Orioles were behind 2-0. Here he is all alone, tagging And the ball was touched by Davalillo. Throughout his career, Robinson's always been an outstanding base runner. And today we saw two old pros really do it, Clemente and Frank Robinson. The final score in 10 innings, Baltimore, 3 runs, 9 hits, no errors, 2 runs, 9 hits, 1 error for Pittsburgh. Frank Robinson's base running, Brooks Robinson's sacrifice fly to give Baltimore an uphill 10-inning 3-2 victory. Now down to Tony Kubek.
Thank you. With me, Brooks Robinson to my left. He drove in the winning run. To his left, Frank Robinson. Frank, with his legs, got into third base and scored somehow, and I don't know how. And Frank, that's one of the most thrilling games I've ever witnessed, and that was some kind of base running.
Well, thank you, Tony. It was a tremendous game. It was a must game for us, and we battled all the way. We didn't hit the way we should have hit today, like we had in the last 3 games. We haven't hit, but we kept battling, and Jimmy Palmer did a great job. He held them right there for 2 runs and gave us a chance to win the ball game.
Brooks, you know, they talk about momentum, and it seems like you haven't been able to snatch the momentum out of the hands of that Pittsburgh ball club until maybe right now.
Well, that's right. We had to do something, and really, Palmer pitched, you know, it was really, he just pitched great, you know, and that's just about the whole story. And I'm just happy we're going to the 7th game now, Tony, and I'm glad we played a little better than we've been playing, too, so that makes everybody feel better.
Frank, I saw when you got that into third base after rounding second and beating that Davalillo throw that you looked like you may have had a little twinge in your left leg. Did you pull something?
Well, Tony, it's a slight pull in the back of my muscle and the thigh, and I don't think it'll be too serious. All I know is, serious or not, I'll be out there tomorrow. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, tomorrow we've got Mike Cuellar, Steve Blass. What about Steve Blass? You saw him one time. He was very effective.
That's right, Tony. He's got the best stuff on their pitching staff, and so far he's got the best stuff we've seen this series. I'm sure he'll be ready to go. He was their best pitcher going down the stretch. He got roughed up a little in the playoffs, but he pitched a great game against us, and we know we'll have our hands full. And I'd like to say something about Mike Cuellar. Every time we seem to be struggling along, even during the season, and here comes Cuellar to do the job, and I'm sure that he's going to be equal to the task.
Frank, you know, during the course of this ball game, some strange things happened. The ball bounced over Belanger's head, and a couple of bad hops. A bad hop, too, of course, their shortstop, Hernandez, but he got the ball and still threw the base runner out, and it seemed like things just weren't ever going to turn back in your direction.
Well, it seemed that way, Tony, but with this ball club, we didn't give up, we didn't complain, we didn't drop our heads when those things happened. We just kept battling, and we knew that our pitchers would try to hold them right there, and we figured we'd score some runs and win the ball game. But as I say, we didn't drop our heads. That's just part of the game. He made the play, and it was a tremendous play by Jackie.
You know, Brooksy, I don't think I've ever been as emotionally spent, and I just sat there watching the ball game. You know, there's an awful lot of pressure in World Series play, and it's talked about an awful lot. But today I thought there was a pretty courageous effort on a guy that wasn't even a player. Johnny Kibler, who got heat from your dugout. When he called it the other way, he got heat from the other dugout. He was under extreme pressure, and I thought he called a pretty darn good ball game under the circumstances.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too, Tony. I mean, you know, it's when everything kind of builds up, you know, and everybody's kind of hollering back and forth, and like I said, he really kept his cool, and I thought he did a great job too.
Frank, you said before the ball game, a little interview we had, it's going to go till tomorrow. It is, and I'm sure you're just feel great shape mentally right now after having the thing swing in your direction.
Well, that's no doubt about it, Tony. We feel great. We wish we could have wrapped this thing up sooner, but with 2 great ball clubs like ours in Pittsburgh, I think this does the series justice for both ball clubs to go into the 7th game 3-3.
Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, thank you so much. Good luck tomorrow in the 7th game of the World Series. Back upstairs.
And we'll be right back. And now we pause for station identification. Somebody let us know what we're
No, I don't, but you want me to run and get Weaver or somebody? All right.
All right, let me get out of the way here, Kurt.
Chroma key what? How much time do we have? What do they want us to do? We like to know. Give us some kind of an idea. Some kind of direction up there? No. Okay. Let's review the scoring if you didn't see this entire game today. The second real spine tingler we've had in this series. The night game and this one. Two of the best, by the way, Chuck, we've seen in a long time in World Series play.
I don't know how you could see any better than you had Wednesday night and then this afternoon.
Right.
They were fantastic.
And in the second inning, the Pirates had a double by Al Oliver to right field, and he scored on Bob Robertson's single to give Pittsburgh a 1-0 lead. Jim Palmer was pitching at this time. In the third inning with one out, Clemente drove a home run to the right field seats. The Pirates leading 2-0. Palmer gave up a leadoff single to Robertson in the fourth. But after that, he was really something, and he shut out the Pirates in the last 6 innings. The Orioles finally got on the scoreboard. They had goose egg after goose egg through games 4, 5, and into today's game when Don Buford hit a home run to lead off the 6th. Then Dave Johnson was safe on Hebner's error, went to third on Powell's single, and it looked like the Orioles might finally break it open. They had runners in first and third, nobody out. But the Pirates brought in Bob Johnson in relief, and he got Robinson on a pop-up, Redmond on a strikeout, and Brooks Robinson bounced into a force out. So that left the Orioles still behind 2-1. But they tied it in the 7th with one out. Belanger single, Stoll second, and came in to score on Dave Johnson's single to left. So we went into extra innings, and in those extra innings you just saw Frank Robinson, 36 years old, go from first to third on a base hit to center by Redmond. Charged by Davalillo, too late with a throw. And then Robinson got those legs churning again and scored on a fly ball in the shallow center field off the bat of Brooks Robinson. And so we go into Game 7, and let's go down to Tony again.
Thank you. With me, Davy Johnson to my left, Mark Belanger, also the fine shortstop, and the final infield combination of this Oriole team. And you know, I thought about you back in the early innings when that ball went over your head. I recall 11 years ago in Pittsburgh, Mark, the ball doing the same thing to me, except this one missed you.
I'm glad it did. I'll tell you, if I was closer to the ball, it had me because it took a nasty hop.
You were on base 4 times today, 3 walks, a base hit. And, of course, in a very important stolen base when the score was 2-1 and many people did not suspect that you were going to go. You had a good jump.
Yes, I did. The skip put it on earlier, and I had to go if I get the jump sign, and I got a pretty good jump, and I thought I had a stolen once I took off.
Davy Johnson, very quickly, your infield and your defense has been maligned somewhat. But you came back today and played good defensive baseball.
All right, well, Mark and I are the big guys, Tony. I'm glad you got us on. Thank you.
I appreciate you infielders. I know that whenever it comes into the crucial situation, it's not the power hitters, it's the defense. Dave Johnson, Mark Belanger, thank you and good luck in game number 7 tomorrow. Back upstairs.
Yes, sir, it's Cuellar against Blast tomorrow. And now, tomorrow, we'll close it off, Chuck, and it's been a home park World Series so far.
And it's my understanding, Kurt, that no team has ever won 4 in their home ballpark, and the Orioles have the opportunity to do that tomorrow, as Frank Robinson told me before the ball game today. He said, hey, kid, don't make any plans for Sunday.
Right. So at the final score again, 10 innings, 3-2, Baltimore wins it. And we'll be seeing you all tomorrow. Kurt Gowdy here with Chuck Thompson and Tony Kubek. As this telecast was presented by authority of Major League Baseball, intended solely for the private, non-commercial use of our audience. Any publication, retransmission, or other use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of the Commissioner of Baseball is prohibited. And Game 6 of the 71 World Series has been brought to you by Phillips 66, the performance company. At Phillips 66, it's performance that counts. By Chrysler Corporation, extra care in engineering. Your host today, your local Chrysler Plymouth dealer. And by the Dry Look. Hey, that wet head is dead. Long live the Dry Look. 7th and final game of the World Series will start tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern Daylight Time with Joe Garagiola and Sandy Koufax, a World Series report. And we'll have the World Series, and right after that, pro football, either Cleveland at Cincinnati or San Diego at Denver. Check your local listing, all right here on NBC.